All right, buckle up because we're about to unpack some serious drama today. We're diving deep into a legal case straight from the book of Acts, chapter 24.
Oh, this one is juice.
It is. Specifically, we'll be looking at the New King James Version.
Okay.
We've got a clash of perspectives, power dynamics, you name it.
Uh-huh.
And all this during a super pivotal moment in early Christian history.
You know what really gets me about this case is that it wasn't just about like religious squabbles, you know?
Yeah.
It gets into like control.
Oh, yeah.
Who had the power
Yeah.
to decide what was okay, religiously speaking, in Roman Judea?
That's a great point. Let's set the scene.
Okay.
About 5 days after those crazy events of Acts 23.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Paul, who's, he's already shaken things up, spreading Christianity.
Right.
And now he finds himself stuck in Roman custody in Caesarea,
Oh, boy.
facing some serious accusations by the Jewish authorities.
Yeah, they really wanted to shut him up.
They did. And this is where our main players step onto the stage. We've got Paul, obviously the apostle on trial.
Right.
Ananias, the Jewish high priest.
Yeah, he's leading the charge against Paul.
He is. And then there's Felix, the Roman governor, who's ultimately calling the shots on Paul's fate.
Big responsibility.
It is. And get this, the Jewish leaders, they bring in this professional speaker.
Like a hired gun.
Exactly. A guy named Tertullus.
Okay.
And this guy, he's a total pro, like a master orator.
Interesting.
And he starts off really laying it on thick with Felix, praising the peace and prosperity of Roman rule.
Trying to win him over, maybe?
Right. You get the feeling he's buttering Felix up.
I see where you're going with this.
And then, bam, he hits Paul with this avalanche of accusations.
Whoa.
Paints him as this dangerous troublemaker.
Man.
Calls him a plague, a ringleader of some rebellious sect.
Wow, some strong words there.
Oh, but he doesn't stop there.
I know.
He goes in for the kill, right?
Okay.
Accuses Paul of two major things.
All right, lay it on me.
First, stirring up trouble among Jews all over the Roman world. Basically disrupting what they call the Pax Romana, Roman peace.
Right.
And second,
Yeah.
profaning the temple.
Oh, that's a serious one back then.
Huge. Now, before we get to Paul defending himself, let's unpack this profaning the temple thing.
Okay, good idea.
What did that actually mean in those days?
So the temple in Jerusalem,
Yeah.
that was like the most sacred spot in Judaism. It was everything to their religious and cultural identity.
Right.
Super strict rules about it, who could go in, how you had to behave in there, what rituals you had to do.
Yeah.
Even just stepping into certain areas without like properly purifying yourself, that was
a big no-no.
a big deal.
So Tertullus is playing this game where
Yeah.
if he can convince Felix that Paul messed with these like super sacred laws, it makes Paul look like not just some religious rebel,
Right.
but also like a danger to the whole social order that Rome was trying to keep. Clever tactic, right?
Very clever.
But did it work?
Well, let's hear what Paul had to say before we jump to conclusions.
Good point.
So when they finally let Paul speak, to defend himself,
Yeah.
he's super calm.
Really?
Yeah, and methodical in how he addresses everything.
Interesting.
And he starts off by acknowledging Felix's, experience as a judge.
Oh, smart move.
Yeah, it shows respect,
Mm-hmm.
but it also kind of subtly reminds Felix, hey, you got to be impartial here.
I like it.
And then he starts picking apart those accusations.
Okay.
One by one. He points out that he was only in Jerusalem for a tiny amount of time.
Right.
Makes Tertullus's claim that he caused all this trouble sound pretty ridiculous.
I mean, yeah, logistically.
Exactly. But here's what I find interesting.
What's that?
Paul doesn't try to, hide his faith.
He doesn't.
No, he tackles it head on.
Huh.
Instead of downplaying it, he's like, look, I worship the same God as these guys accusing me.
Wow.
The God of our ancestors.
Bold.
And he's saying his beliefs are totally rooted in Jewish law and the prophets.
It's a power move, given the situation he's in.
You could say that.
And then
Yeah.
he goes there.
Wow.
He brings up the resurrection.
Oh, wow.
Which, as we know, was a huge point of contention between early Christians
Yeah.
and some Jewish groups at the time.
Talk about stirring the pot. So by bringing up the resurrection, Paul's basically making everyone in the room face this central idea of Christianity.
Yeah.
That Jesus beat death.
Right.
And it's kind of a subtle way to
To what?
to shift the focus of the trial
Away from.
away from all these accusations of him doing bad stuff.
Uh-huh.
and onto the core differences, the theological differences between Christianity
Yeah,
and what Judaism looked like back then.
I see.
Pretty slick, if you ask me.
And I love that he also mentions that he was in Jerusalem to,
Yeah.
to bring aid to his people,
Right, right.
charitable aid.
Yeah, which totally undermines that image of him
As
as a troublemaker
Wow.
that Tertullus was trying so hard to build.
Totally. It's like he's really trying to present himself
Yeah.
as this faithful Jew,
Yeah.
not some enemy of his people.
Right. He's walking this fine line
Yeah.
between defending himself against these crazy charges
Uh-huh.
and staying true to his Christian beliefs.
So the stage is set. Felix has heard both sides.
Right.
Time for the verdict, right?
You'd think.
But there's a twist.
Always a twist.
We're told Felix had more accurate knowledge of the way.
Interesting.
Hold on, wait. Are you saying Felix, understood early Christianity?
Yeah, to a degree.
That's kind of wild, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it means Christianity was already, it was already kind of big, right?
Yeah.
Big enough that even Roman officials like Felix had, at least heard of it.
Yeah.
Knew a little about the teachings and all that.
Huh. So that probably made his decision,
Oh, absolutely.
more complicated.
Way more complicated.
So what happens?
Well, instead of just, making a ruling,
Yeah.
Felix stalls.
He does.
Yeah. On the one hand, he says he's waiting for more info from the Roman commander, Lysias.
Okay, makes sense.
But then there's this other little detail
Oh.
that Felix was hoping that money would be given him by Paul.
Wait, so he was
Yeah.
hoping for a bribe.
Sounds a lot like it, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
Makes you question his motives.
Yeah, big time. Was he really after a fair outcome?
Right.
Or was this just, about lining his own pockets?
Yeah. What was Felix's reputation like historically?
Oh, not great.
Really?
Known for being corrupt, using his power for personal gain.
So that kind of puts his decision to delay in a whole new light.
It does, yeah. Knowing his history, you kind of got to wonder if justice was even on his radar.
And to make things worse, Paul's just,
Yeah.
stuck in prison.
Right.
Even though there's no real proof he did anything wrong.
And it's almost like the longer Felix waits,
Uh-huh.
the more power he has over what happens to Paul.
That's a good point. Which brings us to another interesting part of all this.
What's that?
Felix's wife, Drusilla.
Oh, yeah. Drusilla. We know she was Jewish, and that
Yeah.
Felix actually brought her along when he questioned Paul about his faith.
That's a weird detail, right?
Yeah.
What do you think was up with that?
It's a big deal, actually, because it suggests that Paul's case, it wasn't just a legal thing.
Yeah.
It was something they were talking about, even debating
Really?
in Felix's own home. And, Roman wives, especially ones from important families.
Like Drusilla.
Exactly. They often had a lot of sway over their husbands.
So we've got this Roman governor, who everyone knows is corrupt, his Jewish wife, who's clearly interested in this case,
Right.
and then Paul, smack dab in the middle.
Can you imagine being a fly on the wall?
Oh, the tension must have been so thick.
Well, we can kind of guess, right?
Yeah,
Based on what we know about them.
about Felix and Drusilla.
Yeah, and the whole historical context. I mean, Felix, even with all his political games,
Uh-huh.
he seems genuinely intrigued by Paul.
Yeah.
The text even says that that Felix and Drusilla sent for Paul and heard him concerning the faith in Christ Jesus.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And then later, it says when Paul was talking about righteousness, self-control, and the judgment to come, Felix got scared.
Yeah, powerful stuff.
That's wild to imagine, right?
Total role reversal.
You got this powerful Roman governor used to giving orders,
Yeah.
suddenly faced with, his own mortality.
The possibility of judgment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder if Paul's words, if they hit a nerve.
Maybe unearthed some guilt, fear that Felix had been burying.
It's ironic, right?
Totally.
He has the power to imprison Paul,
Yeah.
but he's deeply affected by his message.
Makes you think, what was going on in his head? What kind of internal battles was he fighting?
Yeah. You think that fear, maybe it could have changed his mind about keeping Paul locked up?
Possibly. But, we know how it ends. Despite those moments of fear and reflection,
Yeah.
Felix just kept dragging things out. For 2 years, he kept Paul prisoner.
2 years. Why? Why would he do that?
Well, the text gives us a couple of hints. Remember, Felix was a politician through and through,
Right.
always trying to keep everyone happy,
Yeah.
Balance Roman interests with keeping the peace in Judea.
Which was a tough job.
Oh, yeah. Super volatile place back then.
So by keeping Paul in prison,
Yeah.
he was basically trying to appease the Jewish leaders.
Exactly. They wanted Paul silenced, remember?
Right. So it was a way to keep them quiet.
Without actually, condemning Paul.
Yeah.
Hoping maybe the whole thing would just, blow over.
And don't forget about Drusilla.
Oh, yeah. She might have had a hand in this too, right?
Totally. Especially with her Jewish background.
Right.
So Felix is in this impossible situation. He's got the Jewish leaders breathing down his neck.
Uh-huh.
Paul, who's clearly innocent, but whose message is causing all this chaos.
Yeah.
And possibly his wife, whispering in his ear.
Talk about pressure.
No wonder he didn't act.
And that's ultimately what defines how Felix handled this, right?
Yeah.
Inaction. He didn't try to find the truth. He didn't care about justice. He took the easy way out, which, unfortunately for Paul, meant staying locked up.
It's crazy how someone in power can just, choose political convenience over what's right.
It happens more than you think.
And the irony is, Felix is troubled by Paul's message.
Right.
But he still throws him under the bus.
Yeah.
Just to keep his own power.
It's tragic.
It really is.
Okay.
Tragic ending for Paul, at least while Felix was in charge.
Yeah. But it's not all doom and gloom,
What do you mean?
Paul, even in prison, never gave up on his faith.
He didn't?
Nope. Kept sharing his beliefs, even with the people guarding him.
Wow.
So Felix locking him up,
Yeah.
it actually kind of backfired.
Oh, so?
It gave Paul a bigger platform.
Huh.
More people heard his message.
So instead of silencing him, Felix accidentally made him more famous.
You could say that.
That's pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. What's crazy is this story from so long ago,
Yeah.
it still speaks to us today.
Well, what can we learn from it? I mean, this clash of faith, power, and justice.
I think it makes us look at our own lives, the world around us, and see how these themes, how they still play out.
Yeah, I see that.
Yeah.
We all face situations
Right.
where justice is hard to find, where power gets abused,
Yeah.
and our own beliefs get challenged.
It's true.
It really makes you think about choices.
Yeah.
Do we compromise,
Like Felix.
Exactly,
Yeah.
just to get ahead?
Mm.
Or do we stand up for what we believe in,
Like Paul.
even if it costs us?
Exactly. This story also makes you think about leadership.
In what way?
What makes a good leader, a just leader?
Yeah.
How do you navigate all that power and influence without losing your integrity?
Those are big questions.
They are, and they're just as important now.
As they were back then.
Absolutely. And, we can't forget about Drusilla in all this.
Right. What about her?
We don't really know her side of the story,
No.
but she was definitely there.
Yeah, she was.
Makes you wonder how she might have swayed Felix, what she thought about Paul, about his message.
It's there's this whole other layer we don't see.
Exactly. All those private talks, those relationships,
Yeah.
they can really change the course of things.
It's a reminder that history is complicated.
Yeah.
Even the stuff we think we know.
There's always more to uncover.
This whole deep dive has been eye-opening.
Yeah, me too.
The story of Paul, Felix, and Drusilla. It really shows us that these fights
For justice.
for faith,
Fair?
for power,
It's timeless.
and universal.
Yeah, they still matter today.
And they make us, think about our own beliefs, our choices, the world around us.
Absolutely. Well said.
It's been a pleasure diving deep with you on this one.
Likewise. To all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep questioning.
And remember,
What
the choices we make, even the small ones,
Yeah,
they matter.
they really do.